What's poppin', my Freeform Renegades? You are tuned into the Freeform Network. Thanks for joining us for another fun episode of Freeform Radio. I'm your host, Noel, with my co host, Daniel.
Yes, sir. Powering through this, man. The sickness is going around that disturbed the sickness, but it's not really disturbed. It's just the sickness. Yeah, man, it's going around claiming everybody, man. But thankfully, people don't look too ill, and we're gonna power through this bad boy.
Most definitely, man. Yeah, I'm feeling under the weather today. You can hear it by my voice, but I'm gonna power through. Unfortunately, Andy is also sick, so he's gonna be out on this one. But it is a nice day here in Chicago. 40-degree weather. Got to be happy that it's not below that. So wherever your listeners are, we hope you're relaxed and feeling good. And we're gonna jump right into this one, starting with Daniel. Let me see here. So you've been watching Fantastic Four, the 2005 version?
Yeah. I've never seen it before. I must have seen like the first few minutes, but never really jumped into the whole thing. But yeah, just recently watched the 2005 version, which is like the first like true like Marvel movie studio or amongst the first ones that came out that had the Marvel banner. And man, I gotta say it wasn't too bad. I kind of always heard that it wasn't the greatest. Didn't really get Marvel going in a huge way. I think they attribute that to like Iron Man. That's when it really started taking off, where the MCU's like started gaining steam and people really started digging it, along with the Spider-Man movies. But yeah, the Fantastic Four doesn't get too much credit, but not too bad of a movie, man. Have you ever watched it?
I think I did watch it maybe like once or twice, but it's been so long. It's been like, yeah, at least about almost 20 years since it came out. So
Since it came out, right?
that's the
Y-
one with Jessica Alba, right?
Yeah. Man, whatever happened to that girl, man? I don't even see her at all anymore. I don't know if she's like into some weird like Scientology. She's in a closet somewhere, or what the hell's going on with her? I haven't seen her in like forever, so God knows what she's doing.
Yeah, I don't know either, man. I remember there was a time where she was like gaining a lot of popularity,
Right?
and she was in that TV show. What was it called, Dark Angel or something like that?
Yeah, she was like the it actress that was like a newcomer. She was pretty, and she seemed how to act a little bit at least, and she was out there, man. And it seems like at least for like the last 15 years, she's been gone. But anyways, yeah, she's in this movie. She plays it well or good enough. Um, Professor Reed, as far as the stretching, Mr. Fantastic, the Thing, and then Johnny, um, the
And that
Human
was
Torch.
Chris Evans,
Yeah. That's the other weird part is that he ends up going to play Captain America in the future. So it's almost like they kind of disregarded the Fantastic Four. They're like, that's not part of our timeline anymore. And he goes on to play Captain America. And it is kind of weird seeing this movie in that light, knowing that he's going to be the future Captain America, which he plays it very well and is iconic for that character. But I think he plays Johnny, the Human Torch, very well as well. Kind of like a rambunctious kid that's kind of young, adventurous, and he's kind of out there. I think he plays it well there too. And yeah, it's kind of funky to see that that's going to be the future Captain America in the MCU universe. But yeah, man, Fantastic Four, good movie, not a great movie. It's kind of difficult with these intro movies. I was thinking about it while I was watching it. I'm like, you have to introduce all these characters, so you have to presume the audience doesn't know anything about them. So you got to give them their origin. Unless you kind of like hurry it up, you got to develop it, and you got to develop the characters, show them a little of their human side, show them a little of now they're being mutants or whatever transformation they go through. So it's tough for a movie to begin with, but when you have four characters plus the bad guy that you have to kind of show all these little stories, it makes it even more difficult where the pacing of the movie almost seems like it's kind of rushed and there's not a lot of substantial meat to it. The whole thing is kind of rushed. I know you mentioned it's been a while since you watched this, so you probably don't remember. a lot of the details of the movie. But that's how I kind of felt after watching it.
Surprisingly, while I don't remember a lot of details, there are parts that stick out to me, like the doctor, Doctor Doom, when he becomes Doctor Doom and all that.
Right.
That I remember that part, and yeah, though I do get what you mean. I do remember enough about it being like rushed a little bit, and that's kind of how origin stories are. And I'm sure if they had a trilogy, it would have been so much better. But it was just this one and done, I think.
Yeah, I think the only other ones that I'm aware of, Fantastic Four, there's one after it, the Silver Surfer or something like that, like riding Silver Surfer. And then there was one that was before this that totally has like that 80s vibe, old movie, Fantastic Four. Those are probably like the three most popular Fantastic Four movies. But yeah, I've never seen the Silver Surfer. I didn't even see this one before the 2005. First time watching it, it was okay. It was okay. It was bearable. Kind of like when I watched I mentioned before the Ghost Rider for the first time. That one wasn't too bad either, even though it is kind of an older superhero movie, but not bad, not bad at all. Something else that I watched that was pretty good was I watched that Sly documentary on Netflix. Have you even seen or heard this, Noel?
So on Instagram, I do follow Sylvester Stallone,
Okay.
and I've seen mention of it, but I haven't watched it now.
Okay. Yeah, man, this Sly documentary, it basically just goes into his coming up as a young actor, and it just his kind of, kind of biography sort of movie. They had one where Arnold Schwarzenegger also on Netflix, which I also watched, and I'll probably talk about some other time. But this Sly one, uh, not too bad, man. It shows how a lot of casting agents didn't really like him because he had like this lazy lip or something, where I don't quite remember if he mentions why, other than he got injured on that side of his face from something. I think his dad hit him or something.
It's like
And so
nerve
he,
damage, right?
yeah, like some nerve damage. So that lip doesn't really raise up with the rest of it. So a lot of casting agents, they're like, nah, this guy's a buffoon. He looks like a dummy. Kind of looks slowish, which he ends up playing up on the Rocky movie, which was one of his first breaks because he wrote it. He started shopping around, and some people started digging it. But the only way that he would sell it is if he played the main actor, which gave him his first huge break with a good character. But he played a lot of other characters as well. The documentary kind of goes into some of the other roles that he played, and I just wasn't aware of it. I thought this was like his first role was Rocky, but very cool. Goes into a lot of course, his mainstay movies, um, and a lot of his, smaller roles as well, and showing how he took some risks trying to get away from action movies. It kind of crosses over into the Arnold documentary because they're both made by Netflix, and the Arnold showing kind of like a rivalry, kind of friendly rivalry they had with each other to make the best action movie. But really cool, man. Really cool documentary. Goes into his family a little bit with his wife and all his daughters. And yeah, man, I kind of dug it. I don't know if you really like documentaries or even like Sly movies to begin with.
You know, I like them when they're done right, and I do know, not a lot about them, but I know more stuff than probably the average person that just likes his movies. Like I know he had two kids before his daughters. One of them died, and one of them is like he's got like mental challenges, I think, and so he usually like I guess stays in a facility for people like that. And yeah, like I think Netflix documentaries they can be done right, and they're interesting when you get all the information and present it to you in a nice, like cool way.
Right. They vaguely mention the son that passed away, but he does bring it up, especially because the kid's a big part of Rocky Five, the movie. He plays his son in the movie,
Hmm.
so it kind of shows him there. So he does bring it up and brings up about having to deal with that. out in the limelight and in the public and deal with the passing of his son. But yeah, man, documentary was pretty well done. If you're into documentaries and you're into Sly himself, something cool to watch and something cool to see. Um, but actually, a movie that was mentioned in Sly the documentary was Copland, which after seeing the documentary, I had never seen Copland before, but it was kind of like a not a big part of the documentary, but it had a good portion just because he kind of mentioned how he was going into something different. He was trying to make it more of a serious role. Um, the character in the Copland movie is actually like a heavier set police officer or sheriff. And he's like, it was different, you know, that he was used to being very fit, playing movie characters where he was fit, he was ripped, you know, Rocky, Rambo, and stuff like that. So that this was definitely a different departure. And Copland had a huge cast of great actors in it. But yeah, from seeing it from Sly, the documentary got me to want to go see Copland. Have you ever seen that one?
No, actually, that's is that more recent or when did that come out?
Yeah, no, it's an older movie, but like I mentioned, man, it's got this huge cast of characters. Um, let me see, Ray Liotta, Robert Patrick, um,
Oh wow.
yeah, Peter Begg, Michael Rappaport, Robert De
Okay.
Niro. Yeah, there's a huge cast of some great characters. It's just people that you just recognize. Tony Siriossi, he's from The Sopranos. A lot of Sopranos characters show up on this. John Vita Megli from Sopranos as well. Um, yeah, it's just got a huge cast that every time I would see somebody, Frank Vincent from Sopranos, Eddie Flacco, the lady, Tony's wife, she was in it. So huge cast of characters that every time a new character would show up on the screen, I was just like, wow, that lady was from Sopranos, and wow, that lady's from this big movie. Um, so huge cast of great characters. Sadly, the movie's not that great. Um, I told my wife, I'm like, after seeing the cast that it was going to have, I was really excited about it. But now I see why the Netflix and even Sylvester Stallone kind of mentions that it was one of his like uh, sadder points in his performance because he really tried hard for this movie to succeed, but it just didn't come together. And you would think with all these characters that it would be a great movie, especially because I really dig even the plot of the movie. I think it's a good plot point. It's got a good story. There's just something missing in the movie. Maybe pacing, maybe the director maybe going into a different direction. I don't really I can't put my finger on what would make this movie great, but it's so close, man. Because like I mentioned, great cast, great story. Just something about it is missing. But yeah, you definitely should watch it just because of the cast of characters and seeing Sly in a different role other than being this badass action hero.
Well, for sure. I'll have to put it on the list.
But yeah, man, Copland, not the best of movies, but definitely something that I think everybody should probably watch it at least, just so that they could see a different aspect of Sylvester Stallone playing a lead character, but not this super badass, unstoppable machine. But yeah, man, a few other things I wanted to talk about, man, is I went on my Best Buy buying because Thanksgiving just passed, and I went out there and got some Best Buy buying, or not some Best Buy, but Black Friday buying. And yeah, man, was trying to take it easy this year. Didn't want to spend a huge amount of money. Um, I did have a few things that I was kind of eyeing and interesting, but there wasn't a huge amount, or at least for the stuff that I was looking for, a huge amount of savings, I would say. Most of the pricing seemed pretty regular. Nothing that like jumped out to you where you're like regularly it's like $100 and now you're getting it for 20 kind of thing. Nothing that jumped out like that. Most of the stuff, if it regularly runs for 100, I kind of felt that they only marked it down to like 90 or maybe $80, which just wasn't like a Black Friday savings for me. I don't know if you noticed that or even saw that out there in some of the ads.
I saw like I thought it was a meme, but I think it was real. I don't know if it was Walmart or what store it was, where they took off the Black Friday slip, like that little,
Right.
and then it was the same price underneath.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, I did see that too. I don't know if that's old or if that's recent, but yeah, I saw that too, man. Yeah, yeah, that's kind of how I felt, man. I didn't know if it was just with all this inflation and all these higher pricing for everything, paying $2, $3 a carton of eggs. I don't know if it was just that you just have to get used to it that things aren't going to be on sale that drastic anymore, where you'll get a $1,000 computer for $300 kind of thing. I think those days are probably gone. But yeah, the few things that I did buy, again, trying to take it easy. I ended up buying Red Dead Redemption Part 1. I know Red Dead Redemption Part 2 is probably the one that gets people most excited, especially because I did see some great deals for that one. There was some deals where it was like $15, $20 out there. I think I even saw like a $10 one. And that game is super awesome. I've spoken about it before. I played it. I beat it. Very cool. Great game. I actually have been itching to play it again recently, but they keep flirting with they're going to release a PlayStation 5 patch that'll make it better, faster, better, prettier looking, and have maybe a few extra features. But man, Rockstar doesn't want to put the time into it, or I don't know what the heck is going on, but they haven't released it. It is kind of better performing on PlayStation 5, but you're in essence just still playing a PlayStation 4 game on your PlayStation 5. So very minor tweaks. So I'm waiting for that PlayStation 5 patch to kind of replay it and get all the accoutrements of, the PlayStation 5. But yeah, I bought the PlayStation 1 version or the Red Dead Redemption Part 1 version on PlayStation 4, and that also has a similar PlayStation 5 up-res, faster sort of thing. There is no PlayStation 5 version of it. Have you ever played Red Dead Redemption 1 or Part 2?
No, it is on my list to play. I think Red Dead Redemption 1 came out originally on PS3, right?
Right, yeah, original PlayStation 3 game.
I do remember you playing it, and I always thought it was really cool, like kind of like GTA, but in the Wild West. And like I always thought, like, damn, that's pretty cool. You got like a big map, and you ride your horse, and just Wild West type stuff. Which it's not like my niche, but it's like it's cool that I wanted to try it. I just haven't gotten around to it. There's a lot of games I got to play still.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, no, this is definitely uh, something a little more unique, and it never had the numbers of GTA, so it never sold that well comparatively. But it definitely is something different, especially with, like you mentioned, the West theme. I kind of dig that stuff. I like those spaghetti westerns, and it definitely plays like that. It plays like the Man with No Name movies. Maybe a couple. What the hell was his name? Andy's favorite guy,
John Wayne.
John Wayne. Kind of like that guy. But yeah, man, it's a great game. I played it back in PlayStation 3 when it came out, and I beat it then. But unfortunately, I don't know how many people out there know PlayStation 3 games are not easily played anymore. It's kind of like behind this wall that makes them very unplayable on PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. There are some ways to do it, but it's through their streaming service, which isn't the best for playing PlayStation 3 games. Fortunately, I still do have my PlayStation 3, and it is one of the only reasons that I keep it hooked up to my TV, even though I haven't turned it on in probably like 5 years. But yeah, because there's no easy way to play PlayStation 3 games on there, on your PlayStation 4 or PlayStation 5. But They recently re-released it earlier this year on PlayStation 4, 1080p, 30 frames per second, a little bit up-res, but nothing too dramatic. It's basically just a port of the PlayStation 3 game with the DLC that came out with it. So that was enough for me because I'm like, if I could play it on my PlayStation 5, PlayStation 5 does bump up the frames to 60. So if I could play it on my PlayStation 5 without having to dust off the PlayStation 3, probably do like 10 updates because I haven't turned it on in forever, I'm like, it's worth it. And it was in a low price. It was on sale. So definitely something that I'm looking forward to playing. Haven't quite jumped into it just yet because I'm still biting my way through Cyberpunk. I'm almost done with that. I kind of feel like I'm maybe like 80% through that. So probably have some good details on that to come. But the only other thing I wanted to bring up that I bought was God of War Ragnarok. Now I know you've been into a God of War run yourself, but yeah, Ragnarok I haven't played it before. Ended up picking up for Black Friday, so super excited to see the end of that arc because I did hear it was just a two-part arc with the Norse portion of God of War. So super excited to play that one. Have you seen any trailers or are you eyeing that one as well, Noel?
So I still have to play the first installment of this Norse mythology arc. So I still haven't played the original God of War, I guess the first one, and then I'm gonna get to Ragnarok once I beat that one.
Cool, man. Cool. Yeah, definitely a must. I think it was free on PlayStation 4 for something. So you might even have it on your library already. The first one, the 2018, I believe, is when that first reboot version came out. But yeah, that one's going to be super good when you play it. It was definitely one of the better, if not best God of Wars to date. We'll have to see how Ragnarok is, but with how I am with Cyberpunk, still probably a few weeks from beating that out. And then I don't know which one I'll start next, Red Dead, or maybe I'll knock out God of War since it's more of a linear game that I could probably just get through the story and beat the game. Where Red Dead is more of a also a story, but it's more of an open world where you can kind of go around and kind of get into your own shenanigans. So maybe God of War will be the next one in the queue, but we'll just have to see. As far as jumping over to you, Noel, it looks like you also did some Black Friday shopping. Fill us in on what you were up to.
So yeah, man, I've been wanting to get a new TV for like a little over a year. I had the one that I had. It was perfectly fine. It's a good TV, 65 inch, 4K. But I was like, man, there's like newer stuff that's out. The technology has gotten so much better, and there's this technology called OLED. It's organic, I think, light emitting diodes, and so it's got this ability to show contrast on a level like unmatched by any other TV. So what it means is that when you have a black image or like black background, those pixels literally they will turn off and show like a truer black. So the blacks look inky and all the other colors pop out even more because of that. So it's got more of a saturated, vibrant feel along with darker, inkier blacks for like nighttime scenes. And since I watch a lot of horror movies, there's a lot of scenes in the night and there's a lot of just darker scenes in general. So it's like literally made for people who love horror movies. Um, and this TV, I've been looking into it for, yeah, like about this whole year, trying to figure out which one to get. And originally I was going to get a 65 inch to match the one that I had already. But looking at the models and the differences, I ended up settling on a bigger one. It's a 77 inch, and it's OLED as well, but it's the model just underneath. So without going into too much detail, there's the S95 and there's the S90, and I got the S90, but the 77 inch of that one. So there's really not too much differences between the two. It's just the minor brightness differences that are pretty much unnoticeable by 99% of people. So I was like, for a bigger TV that's, a better price, I'm just gonna go with that one. Um, and so that's what I ended up getting. I went to Best Buy and bought that one and got the warranty and all that because one thing that OLED is kind of known for, unfortunately, is that it is prone to burn-in. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's kind of when you have like a shadow image. So if you watch like TV and you know how they have the logos on the bottom right typically.
Right, right,
So if you watch a lot of TV and you have like that logo and it's consistent enough, it might, burn into the screen where when you change the channel or when you watch something else, you'll still see that logo there. And so I kind of wanted to avoid that, but thankfully these TVs and the way that I use my TV now, I've kind of gotten better about it where I'll have a refreshing background. And I don't really watch a lot of TV in terms of like just regular channels like CNN or whatever. So mainly I'm just watching movies or, playing a video game. So the only concern would be like if I play a video game and I keep it on the same screen for a long, long time over like months, then maybe it'll cause an issue. But they've gotten really good where they do cycling and they do certain things to prevent all that.
right.
And
Yeah,
it's yeah.
I think like you said, like the gaming, the HUDs sometimes, like the health or icons on the HUD. Sometimes if you're playing it and leave it paused for like a couple hours while you go take a shower or whatever, those things could start burning into your screen.
Right. And it would take a long time for that to happen, but that's exactly why I got the warranty, which was pricey as well, but it's worth it ultimately because they do cover that. And so yeah, dude, my review of it is I would say like a 9.5 out of 10.
Holy
Um
moly! So how's the feel of a 60 to a 70 inch? Do you notice that it's considerably bigger?
yes and no. So the 65 is already a big TV and 77 is just a little bit more. The only way I could really, because I have it mounted, that's the difference between the one that I had originally and this one. The 65 I had on a TV stand with its, the legs attached. This one I wanted to do something different. I wanted to mount it, especially because it's more of an expensive TV, and sometimes like my nephew will come over and I don't want him to like start touching it, the screen, because he does that a lot. He thinks like the TVs are touch screen, just like his tablet. So he's touched my other TV many times, and I tell him not to. He just does it anyway. So I'm like, I don't want that to happen with this one. This one's worth too much money for me to like let anybody touch it, the screen. So I mounted it, and because it's mounted, it's kind of hard to tell the difference. But looking at my TV stand, if I were to set it up on there, it wouldn't even fit on the TV stand. So it is, a little bit bigger.
Wow.
Um,
Okay.
but really, the difference wasn't so much on the size of it. The difference was on the saturation, the quality of the image, the ability to upscale, um, and the contrast ratio. The contrast ratio is near infinite. So most TVs, it'll tell you like a contrast ratio, like whatever it is, like 1,000,000 to 1 or 1,000 to 1 or whatever it is, right? Like I honestly don't know what the other TV was, the 65, but this one is near infinite because of the way the pixels work and the way that they turn off or activate depending on the scene.
Right.
And so I've been watching horror movies, I've been watching stuff like that, and man, it pops, dude. Like the saturation is so awesome. Now I've only had this, I think this is my second week with it. And I haven't had a chance to really tinker around with it too much. Actually, no, this is my first official week with it. I got it around Thanksgiving. So yeah, this is like my first official week with it. I still haven't gotten a chance to play a lot of games, which is why, I'm gonna eventually get around to God of War. But I did get a chance to test out like one game, and it looks pretty good, man. Even older games. So my cousin Ismail, he was kind of filling me in on what to do, what kind of TVs are out there. And so when he knew I was gonna get this, he offered his help to help set it up because there are certain settings that you might need to do for the PS5, stuff like that,
Right.
that help optimize it. And one of the games, surprisingly, that looked really amazing are older ones, like especially the pixel ones. So like the ones that I mean are like the Super Nintendo ones. Super Nintendo games, because they're literal like sprites and pixels, they look so sharp because like every pixel is like well defined. And so I was really surprised to see it. But I think I put on Super Mario. Just about every emulator that I had, I tried it out, and man, it looks great. I'm going to replay some of these older games on there, and obviously the newer stuff's going to look even just as good, if not better. So, man, it
Right.
was surprising to see that these older games look actually really good and vibrant.
Well, that's cool, man. I know when I usually get a new TV, I haven't gotten one in probably 10 or so years. But yeah, man, it's super exciting to see new stuff on it. I remember when I got this one, I was really blown away by playing Blu-ray movies, like older ones, like you said, uh, like The Man with No Name, or watching some like old Elvis movies in Blu-ray and just seeing how crisp the lines are, how vibrant the colors are on there. But I totally get what you're saying with your newer TV. I've noticed that my TV is starting to age where I don't get those blacks. I get like a watered down black where you can kind of see it's gray. And when I purchased my TV, I remember HDR was barely something new coming out. So there was TVs that had like supposedly true HDR, which were a premium price, and there were some that have like simulated where they could, you know, make it where like you have HDR, and that's the one I bought because it was just so much more for the real HDR. And I kind of regret it just because I do keep TVs for a long time. I should have just paid the little bit of extra. But yeah, you could start noticing that the blacks are not that black, and you kind of get that like watered down look to try to show you like those dark movies. But yeah, man, that's super exciting. I can't wait to maybe buy a new TV, but this one is still rocking, man. Samsung TVs, they if you get lucky, man, they last you a good time.
Oh, that is for sure, dude. I think I'm going to be Samsung for life, man, in terms of the TVs that I get. Um, I've had, a number of TVs throughout the years, but the ones that I personally bought, it was Toshiba, Vizio, and then the most two recent, the one I have now, Samsung, and the 65, also a Samsung, and they are great, dude.
No, good. What did you do with your old one? You're selling that one, or?
Actually, so I put it in the living room. I'm gonna see if I can mount that as well. And the one that I had already in there was a 40-inch Vizio that I had before that one.
Okay.
And the Vizio was just a 1080p 40-inch.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just kind of there for, whenever anybody stops by, watch YouTube or whatever, something like that. But with the 65-inch, I'm like, I don't really know, who I would sell it to, who and how do I transport it and all that. So I'm just like, let me just put it in the living room and replace the 40-inch Vizio.
Okay, cool, man. Cool. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
We might have to talk offline, man. Maybe I have some propositions for you to get a TV over here to my house. But
Oh, snap. All
yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, no, man. Getting a new TV to me, I've always enjoyed it. This one, like I mentioned, has turned out very well for me, and even the one before that. Um, this TV, or no, it was the previous TV, was one of those first ones with like the 60 frame refresh rate. And I remember watching like just TV shows, and it looked like they were on super speed motion because everything looked clean and crisp and everything was really moving fast. So it's definitely exciting to see the new techs that they come out with on TVs.
Oh, 100%, man. I remember the Sony you had, and I believe I don't know if it was 1080p, but the Sony TV you had a
Right.
while back, I remember it had like this motion ability that, yeah, like it had like they call it a soap opera effect.
Uh-huh. Right. Yeah,
Like it
it
looks like
had
a soap.
that. It had like that demo where you can click the button and you could see side to side where half the picture was the old way and then half the picture was using the tech, and you could just notice it right away. The motion, sports games looked awesome on it. It's so much now that it's more common on TV, so it's not as special anymore. But Yeah, I remember seeing that new tech, and I was just like, man, this is awesome. This is definitely cool.
Yeah, no, where it really shines, I found, is watching like animated stuff.
Okay.
Because sometimes animated stuff is a little bit slower. And I mean, typically most movies are 24 frames, and that's how the director wants it. But when you put it to 60, it has just like a smoothness to it. I think this is what. So the TV is like set for 60, but it's capable of I think up to 144.
Okay.
And yeah, I've played Resident Evil 2. I tested it out. I put it at 1080p because my video card isn't that great, so I can't run it at 4K. But it was running at 120 hertz, and it's pretty smooth. It was interesting to see.
Yeah, that's definitely something I'm looking forward to getting on my next TV is a 144, just because a lot of games come out with that option so that you can get ray tracing as well as having a good resolution of 144, which seems to be the compromise between 1080p and 4K. So definitely something I'm looking forward to in my next TV.
What I would say to look out for is that PS5, for example, only has a select number of games that support that refresh rate, and it's not as many as you would think. It's like a handful, well, a little more than a handful, but it's not like a long list by any means. I was looking at it because I was excited. I was like, man, I'm gonna be able to play PS5 at 120. And Ismail's like, I don't think you're gonna play a lot of your games. There's a few that you can, but not all of them are.
Yeah, I think it's starting to become more of a standard. Definitely 60 frames per second because there's still games like I mentioned for Red Dead. It's 30 natively on PlayStation 4. So more games nowadays are coming out with 60 as a baseline, and then 120 is starting to become like that premium, definitely refresh rate. So yeah, you're probably right. You're not going to play, especially or at least on PlayStation and Xbox, you're not going to see a lot of 120. But I think it's slowly moving into that direction. So hopefully, in the next year or so, 120 is going to be a lot more common.
Yeah, and I do recommend for your next TV and OLED, man, that they are worth it. And one of the things, like I was mentioning earlier, that I love about this new TV is it upreses and upscales pretty well for older stuff. Not so much for DVDs. I've tested out on DVDs, and they look so-so. But the Blu-rays definitely pop. And I actually watched Drunken Master 1. Have you ever seen that one with Jackie Chan?
Yeah, with Jackie Chan, I've never seen it, but I know he was super young, wasn't he, when he did that one?
Yeah, so that was in the 70s, I believe late 70s, and it was the first of two movies he made. Drunken Master 2 is the more popular one, but Drunken Master 1 is like, the origin story of him. And so for a movie in the 70s, man, this looks amazing, dude. I watched it yesterday, and it was cool to see it again. I do have to say though, man, it's kind of funny watching these older kung fu movies because, like, it's just, and having watched so much UFC and knowing more about mixed martial arts, I'm just like, man, these kung fu movies are like kind of comical in a way because it's like play fighting, like the moves that they do and the stances and the over exaggerated movements, and I'm like, this wouldn't work, not in real life, not at all. Like this is once you know about fighting, once you know more about like what it is to fight and how to fight technique wise, this is like just make believe shit. Like it's like they're both in on a game and they're just playing around like play fighting. So it was funny to see it, and then all the sound effects they do every time they punch, but it hits air. You hear like this like whooshing sound, like they're throwing it a
All
hundred
right.
miles an hour.
Mm-hmm.
You hear all these clapping sounds because like they're constantly touching their hands against each other, like clapping, like it's like a smacking each other kind of thing, but it's like a clapping sound.
Right.
It was just really funny, dude. I was like, man, this is a bygone era. Like you won't see stuff like this anymore, but it's still cool. It's like nostalgia, and I remember seeing it a long time ago. So I got it recently. It's a Blu-ray made from a 4K remaster. So the quality really popped, man, and the colors popped, and it was just really cool to see. That thankfully they had it in the original Cantonese language that it was recorded in, of course with the English subtitles. And yeah, I would say it's definitely worth watching if you like kung fu movies.
Nice, nice. Yeah, man. Every now and then I do get an urge to watch one of the old ones. The last old one that I saw like that, what was it called? Nine Deadly Sins or something like that. I forgot what it's called. You probably have seen it. I don't know if you recall it, but it's where this just like almost every other kung fu movie, there's a clan and they get attacked. Their master gets burnt alive, and then so the few straggling survivors they join up with like this band of like reject guys that were just kind of like kung fuing on the side somewhere, and then they train up and then they go fight like these nine grandmasters, and each one has like an element like they like perfected. Like one's fire, one's water, the other one's like gold, and the other one's earth or whatever. And it's like it's really cool, man. I remember watching it when I was a kid, and I ran across the Blu-ray for it, so I bought it, and I was just like, yes, man, this is some cool stuff.
That kind of reminds me of Chinese Super Ninja.
I think that's the renamed version of it, but I
Oh,
because I've seen that one, and it's the same movie, but I think it's dubbed or named depending on the territory, Super Chinese Ninjas or whatever, and then also like Nine Deadly Sins, or I forget what it's called, or Six Deadly Sins, something like that. But yeah, it's that movie, yeah, for sure.
okay. Yeah, that's a good one, man. I had to get that Blu-ray, dude. That's a classic for sure.
Yeah,
But
it's like you said, like those colors pop. It's definitely cheesy, but yeah, it reminds me when I was a kid, just watching like channel 66 and just watching these old kung fu movies on like Sunday mornings.
yeah, dude, definitely. Like it's and like I said with the OLED, watching old stuff, it's like watching it for the first time, but in a much clearer quality. And a lot of people were saying that, when you get one of these TVs, it's gonna make you want to watch everything you've ever seen again
Right.
because it just looks that much better. And I agree. Like I have a library of a lot of stuff, and I'm like, it's gonna be an ordeal to rewatch everything. But little by little, at the same time, I can't watch too much stuff because you know, life is short. We got to do a lot with it. I think that's for me personally, that's the way I look at it. Like life is short. I got to do more than just sit down and watch TV. But definitely gonna take advantage of this while I have it. And like I said, like you were saying, like you keep your TVs 10 years, so I think this one's gonna be at least 10, if not more. I don't see myself buying another TV for a very long time. If I ever were to get something new, and this is like way down the line, I would probably get like a projector with like 100 or 150-inch projector screen once I have like the space for something like that, like a theater room.
Right.
But
Right.
this is way more than enough, more than I expected. And another thing I've been rewatching, I was actually binging it yesterday. I was feeling under the weather this weekend, and so yesterday I'm just like, let me just put something on that's like plays in the background that I could just watch here and there, and then take a nap while I'm like laying down on this reclining chair. And I put on Supernatural, the CW show, and I remember you watched it, right? Supernatural.
Yeah, yeah, I did watch. I gotta say, like at least the first five or so seasons. I know this thing went on forever, so I didn't catch the super ending, but I watched it up to where like Dean became Kane, and around that area, and then that's when I kind of fell off of it.
That show, that show goes all over the place, man. This show is so I've seen all the whole thing, right?
Right.
15 whole seasons. This went 300 and
Dang, holy
like
moly,
20
man.
plus episodes.
It's like The Simpsons. It never ends, man. It just keeps going.
And exactly, man. And because of that, they had to do like just about everything. Like everything is accounted for. You had the Cain and Abel story. Yeah, they even had God in there. They had Lucifer. They had like everybody in history there, dude.
Right.
And but yeah, like the first probably 3 to 4 seasons are probably the best. Um, there's a couple other good seasons too, but those are like probably the most that were like true to like horror and were less about like kind of comedy in a sense. And so anyway, I've been rewatching it, kind of binged it yesterday, nodding in and out, taking a nap and but anyway, when I was awake watching it, it looks so good, man. And there's a lot of obviously dark night scenes and it popped, and this is like a compressed file that I have. So I do have the Blu-rays. I plan to bust them out and put them in. Uh, so that way I could just see the differences. I'll play them side by side and see how much better the Blu-rays are uncompressed.
Right. Yeah. There's just something about watching old stuff like that. I know that, when I do feel ill or I'm not feeling really up to it, and I just want to kind of lay back and maybe doze off and not to be too worried. Because I don't know if you're like me, but if it's something really interesting and I really want to watch it, I can't even lay down because I don't even want the chance of me falling asleep if it's something really interesting. And not that I'm not interested in like Star Trek and stuff like that, because those are like my viewing pleasures, stuff that I really enjoy every time. But like if I'm not feeling well and I know I might doze off, I'll put on some Next Generation, and I'll just leave it in the background. And even if I close my eyes, I could still see the scene because I've seen it so many times
Yeah.
that I'll doze off, I'll wake back up, and I'll be like, yes, this is that part, and then I'll doze back off, and then I'll wake back up, and I'll be like, yes, this is that scene. And yeah, man, there's just something about that. Just watching it, uh, old stuff that you really care for, and not even really needing to see it in its entirety, and you already know what's going on.
100%, dude. I relate to that. There's a lot of shows for me that does that. Seinfeld is one of those.
Yes, yes,
Yeah. Yeah, Supernatural, Star Trek Next Generation also. Um, and a few other shows. Yeah, like it's
right.
just it could be anywhere in the scene in the episode, and I'll know like what's gonna happen. So it doesn't matter if I doze off. I'll wake up and be like, oh, I know what's gonna happen here.
Right. No, for sure, man. No, Supernaturals is one of those that I did like, and I still like it. I know that they probably jumped the Shark Tank at the end, but it's one of those that I wouldn't mind rewatching. Another one that just recently crossed my path that I was thinking about starting up again was The Flash, and that kind of falls into that a little bit too. The Flash, Daredevil. I guess just to let you know, I got Disney Plus for a couple months, and I like, man, I should really start watching Daredevil, The Flash, and a few other ones. And I was just like, man, it'd be really cool to see these superhero TV shows. But I don't know, man. I don't know.
I do recommend Daredevil and Punisher.
The Punisher. Oh yeah.
Those go hand in hand because Punisher is kind of introduced in Daredevil, and then he gets his own standalone show. And I think they're going to bring back Daredevil as well, possibly in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I'm hearing a lot of rumors and stuff, and so I'm excited to see where that goes. And I would hold off on Flash just because the first few seasons were good, but I think it finished off on the eighth season. But I actually quit, I think, at the end of season six. And, initially it was a good show, but towards the later seasons, probably like 4 to 5, and then six was like just that. It was like with the straw that broke the camel's back. I was just like, I was done with it. I think it was the end of season six where I'm like, you know what, man, I've wasted enough time. It was like a chore to get through the season, and I had to watch the episode, just be like, this is not the show that it started off as. And I could tell the writing was becoming more woke, and things were being introduced for the purposes of diversity and not the purposes of telling a good story. And it is what it is. I don't mind diversity, of course, but
Right.
as long as it suits the story and as long as it doesn't interfere with the story, as long as it's not like, hey, look at this diverse cast. It's not about that. It's about Flash. And Flash is should always be the forefront of the show. And later on it becomes where he's kind of like he's just too much of a goody two shoes and he tries to convince people to like not be villains. It's like that's not what a superhero is gonna do in the comics, dude. Like he's not gonna be like, "Hey, you should not fucking rob people." Oh, okay, all right, then that's it. It's like there's got to be more to it, man. The stories they were telling were just terrible, and that's all I can really say. It's a shame that it went that way, but I think they finished after 8 seasons, and the show like just I don't know if it got canceled or just they decided not to go with it anymore. But I mean that is par for CW and DC in general, man.
Yeah, for sure, man. No, I hear you 100%.
But yeah, going back to Marvel, dude, I think they know what they're doing in terms of TV shows. But in terms of the newest Marvel movies, not so much, man. And it actually leads to our article of the week. So we got here an article from Forbes. Disney CEO says the Marvels failed because there wasn't an executive supervision on set. This is from Paul Tassi. And essentially, I mean, it just goes into detail about how Bob Iger, he made headlines for multiple reasons. Some of it to do with stopping ads on Twitter. But one of them, the reasons was because he was saying how, the box office hit that the Marvels had. Actually not hit the disaster that they had partially was due because the quality wasn't there, and he relates it to a lack of supervision on set. Now, I haven't personally seen this movie, so I can't really comment too much on how good or bad of this movie it was. But I have seen some of the more recent movies of the Marvel franchise after Endgame, and I gotta say the quality is definitely diminished. It's definitely become more about quantity and less about quality. And the budget of these movies are getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and they're not making their money back. When you take into account marketing budget and all of that, they're not making their money back. And so it's interesting to see how the Marvels actually has been one of the lowest like lowest received movies in recent times. So have you seen this one?
No, no, and I have no plans to see it. I think it's kind of a little bit of what, like you mentioned with the Flash. It almost seems, and they even mentioned it in this article, as far as it's more about the message than it being entertaining, and where they're pushing their agenda or like this hidden, which to me it's perfectly fine. This movie actually is not as bad as other things that are established. So if they want to create a superhero team where it's just women, that's perfectly fine for a non-established or maybe non-mainstream group. So to me, I think stuff like this is perfectly fine, but it just kind of shows you that the audience is not hungry for this. Now, the article also does make mention that maybe it's fatigue as far as superhero movies, but I'm not really sure about that. I mean, I just happened to Google 2023 superhero movies, and here's a few that came up. Blue Beetle came out. That's a DC movie, 78 on Rotten Tomatoes, so not too bad. Above average for sure, maybe not great. Across the Spider-Verse, the Spider-Man movie, 95. So doesn't look like there's fatigue there. Another one, Shazam, The Fury of the Gods. This one kind of did not as great, 49. So definitely below average there. Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumverse, another low one, 46. Guardians of the Galaxy 3, 82. So that one did well. So I don't see any fatigue there. 65 with that guy from Star Wars, 34%. So This one didn't do too great, but new property maybe issue. Not really sure what the problem was there. And Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Maybe not a superhero movie, but definitely maybe in that realm. 96% on Rotten Tomatoes. So that one definitely did well. So I'm not really sure if there's superhero fatigue the way the article makes mention, because there's definitely some good movies in there. Now, they were also kind of projecting that Aquaman wasn't going to do too well. And to be honest, I maybe have to agree. I'm not super excited for the new Aquaman movie to come out. So maybe it is a little bit of fatigue, but to me, I kind of read this movie as being one of those uh, women are superpowered, which is totally fine, whatever. But that's just not the stuff that I dig. So I wasn't planning to watch it. I'm not going to watch it. Um, this isn't my cup of tea and the stuff that I really want to watch.
I agree, man. I didn't watch Captain Marvel. I didn't really have an interest in Captain Marvel. And this movie, this I guess the sequel, if you want to call it that, the Marvels. I'm not really interested in it. And like I said, this new phase of movies that came out, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse, didn't like it. I feel like they kind of made Doctor Strange like the secondary character in his own
Right.
movie. And so, you know, when it becomes more about the message and diversity than it becomes about making a good, entertaining movie, that's when, that's when it starts to do bad. That's when it starts to not capture people's attention because people don't go to the movies to want to see a message. They're not like, oh, this is a message about this. Let me go watch that. They want to go and be entertained. That's literally the whole reason of a movie is to be there and be entertained. If we wanted a message, we would listen to like a speech or something. But so that's part of the reason Bob Iger said that this movie didn't do well. He's like, it needs to be more about entertainment and less about the message. And it does go also into detail about how one of the best things they've done is Star Wars related. One of the shows that they came out with called Andor actually was one of the best movies or best show that they've done in recent time. And I have to agree on that one. But just to kind of wrap up the article, I think overall there isn't necessarily fatigue with superhero movies. It's that when it's not done for the purposes of entertainment and it's done more to check boxes and to appease certain smaller groups of the audience, that's when you start to run the risk of having like a box office bomb. And that's when you run the risk of just having negative reception and wasting your time and losing tons and tons of money.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a bigger risk now that budgets are ballooning ridiculously. I mean, even in the video game sphere. So it's something that they're going to have to keep an eye out. But I kind of agree with you. Like I mentioned, I got Disney now. So I'm kind of excited to see Andor. I'm excited to see uh, what's the other one that just came out? Obi-Wan. So I'm kind of interested in seeing that. So definitely some cool stuff out there. But I agree. I don't know. It might be a little bit of each. I mean, it's not definitely. Probably one thing is not to blame. It might be superhero fatigue. There is definitely a lot of superhero movies. It's becoming the fad. We just talked about a few that I watched recently. So it definitely is something that's out there. There's a lot of different flavors, a lot of different ones, and not all of them are going to hit. Some do have to fall and not be great. But yeah, man, I think if it fits the narrative and that is the point of the movie, like Marvel's, it's totally fine. But it's just not something that I'm interested in. If it's something where the story, an established storyline of, Popeye, he's a white sailor and now he's played by a Latino Mexican. It's just like, well, that's not Popeye. That's somebody else. Make that movie and put it out there, just like Marvel's, and it's fine. Put it out there, and if it does well, it does well, and if it doesn't, then it wasn't a strong movie. So, yeah, I'm not interested in seeing this movie. Wasn't interested in the first Captain Marvel as well. Uh, Character doesn't seem that interesting to me, but it's funny, man. I kind of play it up a little bit for my wife, but anytime there's a commercial about empowered women, I just go like, "Oh, here we go, another superhero woman." And so I kind of egg it on with her to kind of get a joke out of her.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, to me, it's like perfectly fine. Women can be strong women. That's definitely a plus. Diversity, that's definitely a plus, to bring more of the variety out there. I mean, that's what Americana is to have a variety and be diverse and have a bunch of different flavors in there. But not everything is going to appeal to everybody. So while these budgets get bigger and bigger, unfortunately, there's going to be bigger and bigger failures.
I agree, man. And this might be a little bit of a hot take. I do agree that, there's a lot of strong women and a lot of strong female characters in movies, and some of them superheroes. I actually liked the first Wonder Woman. I thought that was a good movie. I didn't watch the second one. I actually heard it was not so good. That being said, I think part of it is that most throughout human history,
Uh-huh.
women are seen as more nurturers and less warriors, and men are obviously seen more as warriors and less nurturers. There's just a certain order to the way things are and how we expect things to be, and we don't expect men to be feminine and we don't expect women to be masculine. So when you start mixing the two, it can kind of muddy the waters and people are turned off by it. So I feel like maybe that's partly of the reason why people aren't so gung ho about watching some of these movies that have sometimes obscured the way a woman will be strong in a movie. Like it's like overcompensating because like Ripley and Alien was a very strong female character,
Right.
or Sarah Connor in Terminator 2, very strong female character.
For sure.
Like an ass, like she could kick ass. You could tell she could use a gun, very qualified. But I'm not gonna expect her to like judo toss like a 250-pound man and like manhandle him. I'm not gonna expect that at all. And if that happens, I'm gonna be like thrown out of the realism of it. I'm not gonna be vibing that as much. But she definitely could hold her own, and she has like skills with guns and all that. So she's a strong female character with limitations, and she gets hurt in the movie, and it shows like realism in the movie. So I think some of these superhero movies, it gets obscured and it gets like overcompensated. They make them too strong, and it may be too masculine at times and too much of like throwing it in your face, like I'm powerful, I'm female power. They could be powerful without having to state it like in your face. So, well, we'll see, man, how they compensate and how they proceed in the future. I really don't think it's fatigue, man, because I've been seeing rumors about future movies in the MCU universe, and I'm excited for a bunch of them. So, we will see how it goes.
No, for sure, for sure. We'll see how the future goes with a lot of these movies. I I agree with you, man. I I think it's like exciting to see some of these new ventures. And by all means, if there's a leading character that's a female, I don't think that's the problem. I just think that certain stories are just going to hit and certain are not. So we'll just have to see what the future comes with. But yeah, this movie doesn't look like it's doing well. It doesn't look like it hit the audience the way it should have. But we'll just have to see. But I think that's it for us today, man. I'd like to thank you all for listening. Remember, you can follow Freeform Radio on Twitter at Freeform Network. Send in those questions and suggestions, ffnquestions@gmail.com. Also, visit our webpage, freeformnetwork.podbean.com. There you're going to see all of our past episodes, 200 plus, man. It's just like episodes on top of episodes. So come on over there, take a listen, see some of our old ones. Hit that like and subscribe button. We really appreciate it. Even our YouTube page, Andy was mentioning that our numbers are going up, our subscriptions are going up, so we definitely appreciate that, and we appreciate it for all our loyal listeners. spread it around, share that episode, get a couple more subscribers. We really appreciate it, man. But for Freeform Radio, we got Noel.
Yes, thank you very much for listening. We appreciate you.
And I'm Daniel. Thank you, Noel, for showing up, man. I know you weren't feeling under the weather. And Andy is half dead or half alive, whichever you want to see. But hopefully we'll have him back on the next one. So we'd like to thank you all for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.
That was cool, Dad.